Welcome back to our 10-part series that we've been doing on adult children of emotionally mature parents. And today we are on chapter 8, where we are talking about how to avoid getting hooked by an emotionally immature parent. So I'm sure from all the content that we've been speaking about in the last couple of weeks, you've been able to identify whether you were brought up by an emotionally mature parent. And you've also been able to identify whether as an adult right now you have, and if you're a parent, you are bringing up children and you've been able to know whether you are showcasing some tendencies of an emotionally mature parent. And I'm sure you've been able to gather a lot of information around that, and I hope that information has been useful for you and that you will find value out of it, in the sense that you'll be able to apply it in your daily life, and you'll be able to reflect upon your childhood and make the necessary changes. So today, as we talk about how to avoid getting hooked by an emotionally mature parent, I hope that you will be able to gather more information around this topic and that it will be useful information. There are there are 4 ways that were identified in the book about how to avoid getting hooked by an emotionally mature parent, and I'll get straight into them. The first one was that for you to avoid getting hooked by an emotionally mature parent, you need to drop the fantasy that your parents will change. So emotional closeness requires emotional maturity, and that is something we've been able to identify from the past couple of chapters you've spoken about. So if your parent is not emotionally mature, then they do not have the capacity for emotional closeness, and they do not have the capacity to help you feel loved and wanted within your family and in that particular relationship you have with them. So you have to drop the fantasy that your parents will change, because they probably won't. Change takes time, change takes efforts, and it requires a lot of commitment. And I'm sure even on a personal level, you're able to see the times you've tried to change a habit or a characteristic in you, and you've seen how long it takes to change. And so if you live with a constant desire, or let me just call it a fantasy for what it is, that your parents will change, and then one day you guys will have a very emotionally close relationship, that might not happen, because it requires for them to want the change first of all. So if they don't want the change, you cannot make them want that change. You cannot make them want that emotional closeness with you. And so if you're living in a constant desire, waiting for the day that they will change so that you guys can become close, that might take a long time, and that might leave you feeling very alone. That might leave you frustrated, because if they don't change fast enough to catch up with where you are right now, with all the information you have, it will just feel like the effort is wasted. So I will invite you. This is an invitation. Please drop the fantasy that your parents will change. And the reason you need to drop that is because it will also help you realize that you might not get to have the relationship you wish you had with your parents, but you can get to have a different type of relationship. And because you're an adult right now, you can go and find those emotionally close relationships outside. You can find other people who can cater to those emotional needs. So drop that fantasy and be prepared to see how you can create a new different type of relationship with your parents, and it is still okay. So unless you really want to work hard at this, and you think that your parents are in a place where they are willing to do something about the emotional closeness and the emotional immaturity, just drop the fantasy and move on and find other things to do, and develop the most realistic relationship you can have with your parents. It might not be the most emotionally intimate relationship, but it could be a relationship of whatever sort. So if that's the most realistic relationship, just develop that and move on with it. That's what I would say. I don't know, you can just think about that further and see if it applies to you. You also need to develop this thing called detached observation. So with detached observation, you have to remember that immature parents thrive on enmeshment, and they don't respect boundaries. I think we mentioned this in the past. Emotionally mature parents do not respect boundaries. They do not want to deal with their own personal issues. They do not want to deal with their unsolved emotional pains, and they project many issues. Many of their emotional issues they'll project on you, because they're emotionally immature. So if you feel emotionally activated by your emotionally immature parent, create distance and come back to them when you're calm and you're ready to observe them. Because sometimes if you're expecting that they will be emotionally understanding all the time when you have a conversation with them, then again you're building a castle in the air, they will probably not be understanding, because that is not who they are. And if you're able to go and calm yourself down, you're able to go and deal with your own emotional needs, and then come to them feeling from a place of empathy, from a place of you feel you're sustained, you are in a good place, then you won't be expecting too much from them, and that will help you have a realistic relationship. Again, this ties to the first point. It will help you have a realistic relationship. So develop that detached observation. Just see them for who they are. And we said that it's not that we are trying to make our parents sound like they were bad people, they were horrible people. We're just looking at them objectively, and there's nothing wrong with looking at your parent objectively. So remember that you do not have the obligation to overextend yourself emotionally just to cater to your parents, because now you are an adult and you have your own life. Remember, you are not an extension of your parents, you are an individual. So it's okay for you to have your own life, to have your own ways of dealing with things, and you can live your life to the fullest without having to always overstretching yourself and compensating for the inadequacies in your relationship with your parent. You don't have to do all these things. It's okay to look at them objectively and have a realistic relationship with them. I think I've repeated that point too many times, so let me move forward. The other point is you have to develop maturity maturity in your awareness. You have to gauge the maturity levels of your parents, and then you act accordingly. Express yourself and let go of expectations, and then manage your interactions with them. Know what to talk about, when to talk about with them. Remember, you will not always be able to address everything with your parents. There's some things that you can never talk about with your parents because of the kind of relationship you have with them, and it is okay. That is becoming mature in your awareness. That is what you're calling maturity in your awareness. Develop that maturity. Be aware of who your parents are as adults, and meet them where they are. Actually, that should be the motto. Meet your parents where they are. And if they are willing to engage with them. If they are not willing, it's okay. Don't keep fighting the same battle over and over again. So try to develop that maturity to know what topics can be discussed with your parents, depending on the kind of relationship you have with them. How far can you go emotionally with them? When can you talk to them? When do you feel that you're able to be in their presence and feel loved? And if these things do not happen, it's okay to go and develop those relationships outside. Again, I will insist, you do not have to keep overextending yourself. You do not have to keep compensating and excusing their behavior and justifying what they did or did not do. You know, they did what they did with what they had to the degree that they could, and that was their life. And here we are with our maturity in our adulthood, and we need to take responsibility for ourselves, and we need to take responsibility for our actions and our behaviors, and then we need to direct the relationships in the way that is emotionally healthy. So don't extend yourself just for the sake of being in relationship with these people. They're your parents, yes, but at the end of the day, they are adults, and they have to get to a place where they want to get healing by themselves. So I don't know if that makes sense, and I hope it does. If it doesn't, leave a comment and let me know. The last but not least, as I said, there were 4 points in this particular chapter. You need to step out of the old role self that you've been playing, and stop trying to make the healing fantasy come true. If you go back, I think a couple of chapters previous to this, you're going to hear when we spoke about the role self and the healing fantasy. So you need to step out of those two situations and then become authentic. Develop your own authenticity. Aim to have an adult relationship with your parents, not a recreation of the parent-child relationship you hoped you had when you were a child. So when you were a child, there are ways you thought that you wanted your family to be, you wanted your parents to be towards you, and as an adult you might find yourself recreating those relationships. But those dynamics can be very toxic, they can be very exhausting. So if you have the capacity, try to step out of that fantasy, try to step out of that role self, and develop an adult mature relationship with your parents. Try to see them for who they are, be objective, stay grounded in your own individuality. Remember, again, as we said, emotionally mature parents do not see you as an individual, they see you as an extension of themselves. And so that's why you need to develop your own authentic or individuality, and you need to become your own authentic self. So try to develop those things, try to become who you really are, try to get in touch with your real self, and to develop that real self so that you can hear your own voice, you can be able to advocate for yourself and to speak up when you need things. And those are the points that I have from that chapter about how to avoid getting hooked by an emotionally mature parent. Remember to drop the fantasy that your parents will change. Remember to become detached in your observation, and do not become very emotionally entangled when it is pointless. Remember to get that mature awareness, to know your parents for who they are and to see them for who they are objectively, and to step out of that old role self and stop reenacting and trying to make that healing fantasy come true. Try to find the real self that you are. Try to develop a mature adult relationship with your parents. If it is possible, do it. If it is not possible, it is still okay. We don't all get everything we want in life. Sometimes we have to compromise, and maybe this might be a compromise for you. So think about these things, and I hope that you will find them useful, and you can share with a friend in case you think this is useful for them. If you have any comments, any questions, any suggestions, you can leave them in the comments below, and I'll see you in the next chapter, chapter 9, where we will be talking about how family patterns are holding you back. So look out for that, and I'll see you in the next one.